Today we'll go to Shri Suparno Maitra for pre-budget discussions. Suparno Babu is very well known through his regular appearances on TV. He is an expert in public policy and economic affairs, apart from many other things. His experience in various fields, his work experience, both in the corporate world and in the academic world, is absolutely stunning. I have given the details of that in the description box. However, I mentioned just a few of them for easy reference. In the corporate world, he has worked as advisor and head corporate relationship group SROL. He worked as secretary Bengal National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Worked as director Eastern Region Confederation of Indian Industries. Worked as regional director East and Northeast NASCOM. In the academic world, he was chairman, Board of Governors, National Institute of Technology, Nagaland. As member, Board of Governors, Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur. Board member, Information Technology Academic Bureau, All India Council of Technical Education under Ministry of Education, Government of India. He is also a governing body member of West Bengal Joint Entrance Examination Board. He is a member of Academic Council, Netaji Subhash Open University. In public administration, he is a member of Expert Committee on Vidhannagar Municipality. He is a member of Advisory Committee of North 24 Parganas District Police. With all these and many, many more, he is eminently suitable and more suitable than most other people to talk about budget processes. We propose to come back to Suparno Babu once again after the budget also, time permitting. So let's go to Suparno Babu directly. We are indeed lucky to have with us Shri Suparno Maitra, a leading economic analyst. He will discuss with us some aspects to the upcoming economic survey and the budget following that. So we have already introduced him in detail, and you have already learned about his erudition, expertise, and all that. Today we'll go straight to the question. So my first question to Suparno Babu is that since the economic survey is coming up in a few days, economic survey normally details the functioning of the economy for the financial year, which is coming to a close in a few days. So about that, it gives a very pictorial and interesting read on the functioning of the economy. It also hints at the challenges ahead. So we'll try to know from Shri Maitra what he thinks are going to be there, what he thinks are the present real challenges and real opportunities before India today.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Namaskar to all the viewers of this channel. Sir, 31st of January is a great day. And I think though we say that the economic survey for India is going to get released on the 31st of January, a day prior to the release of or the presentation of the Union budget in the Parliament. But it is going to be, it is awaited by the world at large and also our fellow countrymen. The reasons, because the world is looking as to what are going to be the policy directions of this government, because this being the last full-term budget of the current government, as this government will face an election in the year 2024. So what would be the things which will be there on the anvil on the 1st of February this year is going to be anxiously the anxious wait is there, and it's going to be watched by the world. What will be the questions on the mind of people, particularly the lead analysts across the globe? Will India or will this government succumb to populist forces because the elections are coming up for in the year 2024, or will this government show as much as pragmatism, as it has demonstrated in the past and helped Indian economy to be resilient in um, handling the difficult situations like the COVID pandemic, which hit the world at large, and the Russia-Ukraine war post the pandemic. So these are going to be the questions. The problems, as we all know, that there would be the world economy has got shattered by COVID. India did rise up to the occasion, and as both Indians ourselves and people watching this channel, we should feel proud that India could manufacture vaccines and distribute it to the world, which got rave reviews. And the entire global community was thankful to India for rising to the occasion and providing the medicine at that time. One. Second, when the whole world was struggling with regard to their economy as to how to handle the economy, India managed within the given constraints to come out of it. Of course, there has been collateral damage, there's been job losses. The weak, the poor, and the marginalized, they suffer the most. And also the middle class who are largely into white collar jobs. There has been a lot of loss of white collar jobs, and I think the viewers are also aware that it's very difficult for the white collar jobs to come down. But once it comes down, it's very, very difficult to recover those white collar jobs. So that's been a problem area. Then, due to several factors and COVID accentuating it, we have really taken a leapfrog towards technology. And technology has also altered the way we live, the way we shop, the way we spend our leisure time, the way we learn as far as education is concerned, and the way we work. So we spoke about work from home. So several industries which were dependent on rentals because of the offices had to bear the brunt because people started working from home. So the home industry got a big fillip. The telecom industry also got a big fillip because you had to have the telecom infrastructure for people to be working from home. So I think so. In one way, one suffered; the other way, one gained. So, but it has got a permanent change into the way we work nowadays, all across the globe. Two, three, the poor suffer, the migrants suffer. For the government of India and all the state governments, of course, there would be issues. People who do that, but if you look at it in entirety, the government of India and the various state governments did their very best to handle the issue because nobody had an experience of a pandemic before. It was almost 100 years back, and so we never saw the Spanish flu. So this was completely different. First time we were handling things. So they came out with policies, and the migrants were provided free ration, right? And post which the difficulties with that is why one problem really creates another opportunity. So now we are thinking that one nation, one ration card, so that they can avail of the same thing. So one problem gives rise to one sort of thing. So two, three, India tried to address these supply side issues more as compared to the Western economies, which were more into demand. And I think there was a serious debate between two schools of economists. One set of economists, who we normally call the MMT economists, or the money minting theory economists, which were trying to say that, of course, you can print money and give it to them. But I think they were oblivious of the repercussions of more money circulation, because that would have led to more inflation, right? Because that's the challenge that we've been battling out, right? We have been battling out the challenge of job losses and also a failure to create good quantity and quality jobs. And on top of that, if we have that sort of inflation, we are accentuating it, that would have been a difficulty. So the opportunities that we have done is that, yes, there's been a lot of technology focus. Uh, we are trying to position ourselves in the entire world, in the minds of people, as China plus one. So we are creating infrastructure so that people have a China plus one vendor policy, that they are not only going to have factories in China, but if India can come up to that level to have that sort of a thing. So these, in broad have been the opportunities that we have, which are there, how we go about it, and some we have already availed because there are many investments which are coming in. We'll go on detail as to whether all sections of the people have benefited from that or going to benefit from it. Maybe in successive questions we're going to do that. But the problems we say mainly COVID, post which was the Russia-Ukraine war, which created huge issues with regard to, because countries like us and the world are dependent on the crude, and the OPEC countries had also decided to reduce the production thing also. So we are hugely dependent on Russia for that, and this conflict has raised these things because we are dependent on that. So how do we manage? How we have done that? The problems and the opportunities. So I think we have done well, sir.
Sri Maitra has already given us a broad spectrum view of the entire economy. Yet we shall go into slightly more detail about certain aspects of budgets. So I'd like to know what he would want from this budget, from the perspective of the common man, and not only the common man like us, even people who are below the ladder, below us in the ladder of development, and from their point of view, what should be done and what is his wish list.
Very difficult question for the Union Finance Minister, because as all of us are aware, and you are aware, and the viewers are also aware, she will have to battle the challenge of growth versus fiscal deficit, because she needs growth to take place. At the same time, she will have to ensure that we don't bridge the fiscal deficit target that we have been carefully guarding for the last couple of years. Second, we also know that growth does not always translate into the number of jobs. So when you're asking the question from a job seeker's perspective, that okay, yeah, India is growing, but will I get a job? One will have to understand the nature of economy world over is also changing. So if I'm not skilled enough to be availing with the changing nature of jobs, then if the economy grows also, I will not be able to take advantage of that.
So growth may not ensure job creation, but growth is a must for job creation.
Growth is a must for job creation.
But it may not be
jobs for everyone, or to one's liking, because the aspirations levels of the youth are also very high, right? So yesterday it was just a job. Today many people would say, no, I'm not going to do that sort of a job, right? Because I expect this sort of a job for me. So aspiration issue is also an issue to be addressed. Now, so it becomes difficult. So the type of jobs are going to change. Newer set of jobs are going to get changed. So as it is the responsibility of the government to be keeping the people informed through the academia and the other think tanks as to how the economy is progressing, the onus would also lie on us as individuals to understand that what is going to be the directions of the economy or the world, to understand that how possibly I would skill myself. And unfortunately, yesterday, we would complete a graduation or a post-graduation, and we would think that our education is over. Now our work life starts, and we would go and retire at a particular date. Unfortunately, the paradigm has changed today. You'll have to be on a continual education mode throughout your life, one. Second, there's nothing called retirement today, because the concept of jobs have also changed. We are in a gig economy today. So the work is going to get broken down into several pieces and get parceled down to several other places. And it's going to come back, bundled into one and given to the customer. So I think work will go to skilled people. So one needs to have that skill. So the traditional jobs that one were expecting in the past, I think they will be on the decline. And the government's policy that we have seen, the union government's policy also, and many state governments are also following that, I don't want to name them, the government would increasingly like to divest its stake from many sectors, and it will allow the private sector into get into those sectors. So while it creates an opportunity for the private sector to get into those sectors, but since the nature of the jobs are completely changing, people who are highly skilled are going to get advantage of that, which is going to create a different sort of an oligarchic setup. And then the people who are unable to take advantage of that, in spite of the government providing opportunities and the economy growing, they may feel that the economy has been very harsh to them, and they would like to have an economy which will have maybe jobs which are permanent in nature, long tenures, and absolute security and those sort of thing. I think those are completely changing. So growth is must. Growth will create jobs, but whether the jobs would be of a longer duration or would be transient, would be skill based. Not everybody would be able to take advantage of the thing. So the government will have to invest huge amounts of money in human resource development, so that not only just free food and all those things, but whether we give dignity to such people so that they're skilled enough to participate in the beautiful economy that we are trying to create for ourselves.
So, what I gather from what you said, our budget makers are really faced with a very steep challenge. They need to invest huge amounts in social sectors, improving skill sets, etc., health,
And also
budget.
capital expenditure, so that
And
we
capital
build wealth
expenditure
creation.
is badly needed. Our logistics were neglected for
Correct.
decades.
Correct. Correct.
It's the crying need for
Correct.
more and more investment.
Correct.
Our defense sector also calls for major investment.
Absolutely.
At the same time, we are battling through high inflation, joblessness of close to 8%.
Right.
So it's a huge challenge. How do you think this
Yes.
challenge can be partially met?
Okay, so you have asked three broad questions. So the first thing is this: let's talk about capital expenditure. Now there's a huge expectation by people out here and externally also, that the government of India will have to find resources to be investing in capital outlay or capital expenditure, because those will create infrastructure, right, which will make the country grow. But how do they get the money to be spending in that? Because that if they're already committed to certain things, how do they earmark money for that? And if you've already taken debt from some sources, there's going to be a huge debt servicing which is already happening. And if we don't keep the fiscal deficit intact as we have been doing in the past years, then there's every possibility for us to slip. And if we slip, then we also go down in the eyes of the international lenders. They might feel that we may not be able to keep our commitments. So that's one challenge. But we need to invest in capital, one. Secondly, when you talk about social sector, you mentioned about social sector, but I think there's a we see a large emphasis on the government of India and many state government to be to be to be to be spending money on social welfare schemes. That's one part, but I am not against it. But what I'm saying is this: you will have to really build human capital, right? So skill them, right? So and skill them with the nature of the economy. It's not about a particular things which will not going to exist tomorrow. So I think make the academia more dynamic. There'll be more sort of a close coordination between the industry, government, and the academia, so that they work together. Apprentice system is going to be given, because in 1962, almost 60 years back, we had the act with regard to the Apprenticeship Act. The government really needs to push the Apprenticeship Act so that we have on-the-job training for people, because youth of the country, when we talk about a demographic dividend, India has 450 million or 45 crores out of the 130 crores in this. So this is the advantage we have, and India is the youngest country in the world now, with the mean age being 28.9 years. So while other populations have become old, maybe Japan, maybe USA, maybe China, maybe Europe, they average, and China, averaging from 38 to 47 years, and with huge dependence on mechanization, India has the advantage of talent. And the problem was also, because if we don't skill our people, it will not take time to move from demographic dividend to demographic catastrophe. And this is going to be a 10-year window, as all the leading demographers are saying, that we have. So if we don't take advantage, it's going to be a huge, huge thing that they are also going to become a dependent population, irrespective of their young age, too. Three, uh, people, the economy must take care uh, of various sections of the society, and the private sector must also come in and invest. It is always trying to piggyback on the government, right? And there is also a conflict which I anticipate is going to be the industry versus welfare debate. Because if the government listens to the industrial fraternity only and provides uh, all incentive to them, including reduction in the corporate tax rates, because India currently has one of the lowest of corporate tax, absolutely in sync with all the developed economies. But the expectation was that I'm reducing your corporate tax rates so that you can invest. But it has seen that the investments have not taken place, but it has largely gone into dividends. So today are people, maybe somebody, a tribal, who's dependent on the forestry tribes, if you're taking the land away from them to convert it into a factory, and then he's that resource is taken away from him, which was his livelihood, and then you're giving it to someone to create something, so you almost create an oligarchic society and an unequal society when very few people are going to have a lot of resources and the others are going to starve. So industrialization as a concept would fail because the others would not see as a partner in progress. So we will have to have a combination, take the people along and see that and communicate to them that yes, your benefit will also rise with the rise in GDP, because a rise in GDP does not translate into the number of jobs. And if it does also, maybe not a job to me. Maybe Sri Suparno Maitra sir is highly skilled and he's really wanting the economy to grow for investors to come in. But I've got a small parcel of land from which I do a bit of tilling and other things. So Sri Suparno Maitra has got into a job in such a company, and he's taking my land off for the greater purpose, and I am selling it off. But I don't have any annuity sort of a component, and I don't have the skill set. So ultimately, I'm a loser. So if I see I'm a loser and my story spreads around, then there's going to be opposition to industrialization. So I think these are the very, very delicate facts which will have to be dealt by the government of India and the state governments as well. Sir.
You had already referred to the demand side management of large Western economies, which resulted in runaway inflation in their economies and their economies now tanking. Inflation rate somewhere it's 40-year high, 50-year high, and economy has tanked or is about to tank. As opposed to that, India's supply side management largely by investing in infrastructure and all that, so we are in a better shape. Many experts are saying that this year and the next couple of years or so is going to be a sweet spot for India, when India will continue to remain the fastest growing large economy. So, how do you look at the situation? Is it true now?
So I agree with that. I agree with that. Because see, sir, you will have to always look at it in a very relative sense, and I am a great believer of Einstein's theory of relativity in this case, because in a globalized world, nobody can live in isolation. So all the maybe the pandemic has affected everyone. The Russia-Ukraine crisis, the war, is affecting each one. So there's no discriminatory approach of pandemic or discriminatory approach of the Russia-Ukraine. It depends on how much one is suffering based on the dependence on the world economy. All of us, every country is dependent on the world economy, but every country endeavors to develop oneself. India has also used these crisis period to develop itself with regard to technology, with regard to vaccines, and with regard to many others ways of doing business. We realize that maybe the buyers of products are going to have China plus one policy. So we are creating that sort of an infrastructure, not only the physical infrastructure, but the people at large that we can do that. So India is poised for a jump. But as I said in my last answer also, that whether it means good news for everyone, it may not be, right? So as the onus would lie on the government to to help the people to upskill themselves to be a part of the process, the onus would also lie on the people to upskill themselves so that they can take advantage of the growing economy of India.
India introduced the PLI scheme largely with a view to addressing two major objectives. One is job creation, the other is to become a meaningful player in the global supply chain. That, as you mentioned, that China plus one policy. You please discuss or advise or tell us, let us know a little bit more about the success or failures or shortcomings about this scheme.
Sir, I think it's too early to comment on the success or the failures. Let us discuss the intent, as you mentioned. The intent is to become a part of the global supply chain and also to create jobs. Because why would we want industry if it does not create jobs, both direct and indirect jobs? Now let's take the job first. Uh, it is intended that it will create jobs. But the question which will always be there is this PLI scheme, and I think Dr. Arvind Panagaria sir was a leading economist in the world, he, he always says that whether this PLI is a subsidy to capital, because he says that more and more labor intensive industries need to get advantages like that so that we can create more such jobs, as though pharmaceuticals, auto parts and IT is there, but largely our exports, and India contributes only 3.4% of the international trade. So it's ready-made garments, agriculture, leather, gems and jewelry. These are products which are these are focus sectors of the government of India, and these are labor intensive sectors. So I think even if investments happen here, will we be in a position to create jobs? And what is the per person cost of creating one job is the question that will have to be answered. So we'll be waiting for that one. Second, another thing that with regard to so I think it's important to expand the scope of PLI, and I think the Union Minister uh, may also be mulling extension of this thing. How she will manage the resources is a great challenge that she will have to look into. One. Second thing, Arvind Paragaria sir has also mentioned that Indian government has fallen a prey uh, to be to be increasing the import duty of components coming in. Now he foresees a challenge, which I completely agree. So if the cost of in my cost of imports go up, and if I'm making a product and want to export, so my cost of exports would also go up. So I'm going to be further uncompetitive in the international market. So rather than doing that, if we could work on value addition in this country, is going to be something that the government of India should focus on. Uh, the trust part, not only for the PLI, the trust part, people are really looking at India because I think a lot of things which a lot of areas which were of concerns, particularly with regard to the ease of doing business. I think the government of India has done a wonderful job in trying to remove the legitimate deterrents which were coming in the way of doing business. So I think so. So this is there's so we are trying to take advantage of this. PLI is one such scheme which is doing that. How much exactly it will help in job creation? I think I have a doubt in my mind. It will remain because there could be a lot of other ways of doing that. Maybe PLI would directly not accrue to that sort of thing. And if it does also, to how many what sort of skill sets would get benefited is the question which I'm going to have in my mind.
My other question, this is also a bit removed from budget, is about UPI. UPI, we all know, is a runaway success, scaling new highs every month. Even after that, cash continues to rule the roost. They are the king in the market, in retail market. I think cash was, which was only around 16 lakh crores around demonetization, it has doubled to around 32 lakh crores. Though in terms of as a percentage of GDP, it has remained more or less static, just gone up from 12% to 13%. But still, our normal expectation is that it should have been reduced. How do you look at this, and what is the way forward?
So I will tell you, as you mentioned, that it has moved from 16,000 crores in maybe to 32,000 crores in 5 years, right? Because 2016 November, okay, was the 8th November was the demonetization decision, and post which, and almost we have covered 5 years plus. So 5 years plus, if I'm looking at the value terms, you are saying it's doubled. But if I'm looking at the percentage terms, it's just 1 point some percentage rise, because, as you mentioned, that the GDP is also increasing. Right? The GDP is not a Newtonian concept that is stuck at that place. Then the percentage would have also been more. So you see that there's an increased emphasis on UPI. And as I was mentioning about the generation theories, that this famous generation theory, now the millennials and the post-millennials are largely going to concentrate on UPIs because they don't have a purse, maybe. They have a mobile phone. So what they would do, they would scan it, and if they are having fuchkas, I'm using fuchka because all of us are, maybe majority of us are fond of fuchkas, and we go and have fuchkas and other things, and also tea at the vendor. So fuchkalas or tea vendors who are located in a maybe tech city, maybe sector 5 in Kolkata, would always have those infrastructure, maybe the scan, the board and all those things, where the young person will just take out the mobile, flash it and do that. And if he has not graduated to that, he will lose out on the business because maybe his neighbor fuchka vendor has already got that in place, so he can quickly walk to that position, right? So it's also a culture of a place, and cash is also a culture. So a senior population, or as far as age is concerned, so would largely have coins and paper currency in the pocket. Rather, they also have a mobile phone, but they'll be very convenient to be doing that transaction. And largely the vendors would also insist on that because they feel it's convenient, because that has been the habit. It becomes very difficult to break habits. But as there's a change in generation, what we'll see, there'll be a large tilt, but cash will always remain. Whether you decide to call it a king, I would only say, I know that you did it as a gender neutral basis. I say cash could be the king or the queen. The importance of cash will never come down. But UPI is going to reign supreme with regard to the change in demographics.
I'll share with the viewers two anecdotes about the popularity of UPI. The first one is that I heard from the celebrated investment advisor Saurabh Mukherjee. There is a tea vendor in front of his office in Mumbai who sells tea for around 25 rupees a cup. So anybody can come and they have to pay through UPI. If someone by chance has already taken a cup of tea but doesn't have the UPI facility with him and wants to pay in cash, he simply refuses. He says, I don't have the time to handle cash. So you have it for free, pay me the next time. So this is one. Secondly, there is a lady, she was one of the tech leaders. So somehow she was traveling abroad and came back to Bangalore, and then she lost her phone or something like that, wanted to pay the auto in cash. The auto driver said, from which age have you come to here? We don't accept cash. So please pay me through UPI. Then he had to manage it through some friends and all that. So these are the emerging realities about certain pockets in India.
No, sir, wonderfully said. And as you said, sir, so the three-wheeler was looking for the mobile phone and not the purse. And in this case, her mobile phone was synonymous to her purse, right? have it. So I think this is a new world. This is a new world. We need to get ready. And I think India is doing pretty well. The whole world has a lot of respect for India. We are moving beyond markets. It's not that India is a huge market that we are looking, people are looking into India. And I think it's also, we are also graduating from the labor cost arbitrage economy to a real skilled economy, which possibly would advise the Western economies on how to do that. It's not going to be just following their instructions, but we are moving up the value chain so that we can also tell them that what is to be done. So I think from labor cost arbitrage, we are moving to high level skilled positions in India, which the world would benefit. And India is in a perfect good position. And the only concern is whether this growth is going to the sweetness of the growth can be shared by all sections of the society is going to be the challenge, because we see there's going to be a dichotomy. There's going to be unequal sort of distribution of resources, and people who are unlucky to take advantage will be left behind. The government will have to come up with many things to help them to graduate to having those skills, one. And second, also maybe tomorrow, due to artificial intelligence and machine learning, tomorrow's factories may not need people at all. The robots will be doing it. So maybe universal basic income would become the typical instrument for the governments to be providing money in the hands of the people to go and buy food and other things.
It was a wonderful discussion. We would like to go on and on, but somewhere time tells that we have to stop. So I'd request Shri Maitra to wrap up the discussions with a few comments on anything which is left unsaid about the budget.
I would only urge the government of India and the Union Finance Minister that this is not to just look at it as the last full-term budget of the BJP, or call it a union budget only. I think it's very important that not only with this thing, the Prime Minister and the Finance Ministers also have separate rounds of meeting with the finance ministers of several states and also the chief ministers, so that jointly we come and prepare a blueprint for India, by which, because the Prime Minister has already seen a dream of 2047, so that all of us come together and create a template so that the dream of the Prime Minister gets fructified in 2047.
Thank you very much. To the viewers, my promise is that we shall come back to Shri Maitra after the budget to learn what has been done, or as a follow-up exercise on our today's discussion. Thank you.